Should be starting.
Just double checking the website. Give me 1 second. All right, we are live at this time. Will all sergeants please start recordings?
PC recording all set.
Recording to cloud underway. And good morning and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing for the preliminary budget 2023 for the Committee on Veterans. At this time, would all panelists please turn on their video for verification purposes? And to minimize disruptions upon speaking, please place all electronic devices to vibrate or silent mode. If you'd like to submit testimony, please send via email to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair Holden, we are ready to begin.
Thank you, Sergeant. Good morning. I am Council Member Robert Holden, Chair of New York City Council's Committee on Veterans. Thank you all for attending the committee's first hearing of the new legislative session. Today, we will be reviewing the fiscal year 2023 preliminary budget for the New York City Department of Veterans Services, DVS. I also want to warmly welcome our service members, veterans, and military families who have joined us here today. The phrase, "thank you for your service," cannot just be empty words. We must back those words up with action. This means listening to the experiences of individual veterans, hearing the recommendations from advocates, and working closely with my fellow elected officials and public servants and city agencies to deliver the best results for our nation's warfighters. Today, we will be discussing funding for the New York City Department of Veterans Services, the first standalone municipal agency in the country dedicated to serving veterans and their families. For fiscal year 2023, DVS's preliminary budget totals $6.1 million, including $4 million in personal services funding to support 40 full-time positions. At today's hearing, the committee hopes to understand DVS's efforts to identify the most pressing concerns for the city's veteran population and learn more about the agency's actions to confront these issues. While I understand DVS has made progress the past few years, it's clear from my discussions with veterans, veteran service organizations, and even DVS leadership that more work must be done to address the agency's operational needs and to improve the delivery of services to our veterans. Our veterans deserve quality care from trained professionals to help them navigate federal and local bureaucracies. It is critical that DVS build the staffing capacity to address constituent questions in a comprehensive and timely. It is also the responsibility of this committee to make sure that DVS has all the resources and funding it needs to fulfill the agency's broad mission successfully. I'm eager to hear Commissioner Hendon's vision for the future of the agency and his goals to extend the agency's reach and capacity. This committee, the City Council, Mayor, and Commissioner are all on the same team and in the same fight. We are going to work together to support our country's heroes. And I want to thank the outstanding Veterans Committee staff for their help in putting this hearing together. Committee Counsel Bianca Vitale, Policy Analyst Elizabeth Arts, Senior Finance Analyst Sebastian Bacci, and as well as my staff, Chief of Staff Daniel Cozina, Legislative Director Craig Caruana. I would also like to acknowledge the members of the committee who are present today, Council Member Ariola, Council Member Nurse, and I think that's it so far. I will now ask the committee counsel to go over some procedural items.
Thank you, Chair Holden. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bianca Vitale, and I'm counsel to the Committee on Veterans for the New York City Council. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called on to testify, when you will be unmuted by the hearing host. I will be calling on panelists to testify. Please listen for your name to be called. I will be periodically announcing who the next panelist will be. For everyone testifying today, please note that there may be a few seconds of delay before you are unmuted, and we thank you in advance for your patience. All hearing participants should submit written testimony to Testimony at council.nyc.gov. At today's hearing, the first panel will be representatives from the administration, followed by council member questions, and then the public will testify. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question, please use the Zoom raise hand function, and I will call on you in the order in which you have raised your hand. I will now call on members of the administration to testify. Testimony will be provided by the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Veterans Services, James Hendon. Additionally, the following representatives will be available for answering questions: Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs at DVS, Paul Vallone, and Assistant Commissioner for Community Affairs at DVS, Jason Loughran. Before we begin, I will administer the oath. I will call on each of you individually for a response. Commissioner Hendon, Deputy Commissioner Paul Vallone, and Jason Loughran, can you please raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Commissioner Hendon?
I do.
Deputy Commissioner Vallone?
I do.
Assistant Commissioner Loughran?
I do.
Thank you. Commissioner Hendon, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. And good morning, Chairman Holden, members of the committee, and advocates. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to discuss the Department of Veterans Services mission, services, and programs for fiscal year 2023. My name is James Hendon. I'm proud to serve as Commissioner for the New York City Department of Veterans Services. I'm joined today by Paul Vallone, Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs, and Jason Loughran, Assistant Commissioner for Community Affairs. I welcome the opportunity to testify about our budget and our current efforts, which include benefits navigation support, VA disability claims assistance, housing services, community outreach, employment, and entrepreneurship programs. Following my testimony, I welcome questions that committee members may have. Each fiscal year presents the opportunity to take stock of how far we have come, examine the city's resources, and make decisions that ensure that we can continue to deliver the support and services that our 210,000 heroic veterans and their families across the 5 boroughs need and have come to depend on. Veterans are valued members of our community who have demonstrated their commitment to this country, their communities, and to serving others. DVS has served as a national model for how cities can offer comprehensive and holistic services to veterans. We are confident that the upcoming budget discussions will produce a sound fiscal plan that will enable DVS and the city of New York to continue to provide our veterans with the necessary services they require. Since our last budget hearing, there's been significant change throughout New York City. There's a new mayoral administration, a new speaker, many new council members, and the continuing impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which thankfully has started to substantially subside as New York City continues to recover. Despite these changes, DVS continues to provide critical services that our constituents need. For FY25, $6.074 million was allocated under the agency's budget for staffing and programmatic functions. Last year, DVS experienced a slight decrease in our headcount from FY22, so our budgeted headcount is for 40 employees. However, the current employee headcount is 35 due to attrition. Despite these changes, DVS stands committed to continuing to improve on the success of our programs and services while increasing our engagement and outreach to more veterans in the city, inform them of their agency, our services, and how they can access them easily. DVS will continue to work smarter and effectively manage resources, staff, and time to deliver verifiable, evidence-based outcomes. Our city is home to roughly 210,000 veterans and active duty service members. Our veteran population is one of New York City's most vital assets. Most of the population is concentrated in Queens, with 27.9% dwelling in the city's largest borough, followed by Brooklyn with 25.7%, Manhattan with 18.3%, the Bronx with 17.9%, and Staten Island with 10.2%. This is mostly an aging population, with 71% of our community falling within the 55 and older age bracket. Most of our veteran community identify as male at 92.2%, and the minority are female at 7.8%. A majority of the population is white, followed by Black and African American, Hispanic or Latino, those who identify as other race, Asian, with the smallest groups identifying as Native American, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and those reporting to be 2 or more races. NYC veterans tend to have high levels of educational attainment, with 58.7% of the population having a bachelor's or associate's degree, or at least some college credit. Veterans are more likely to vote, volunteer, and are more civically engaged than their community in their communities compared to the civilian counterparts. They are one of our city's greatest assets, and we should continue to improve and increase services to them and their families. Without question, the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the mental health needs of many New Yorkers, making it more important than ever to stay connected to one's community. That is why in the spring of 2020, DVS created Mission Vet Check in collaboration with the Mayor's Office of Thrive, NYC, now called the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health. Mission Vet Check was created to offer veterans support and connection to the community during this crisis, as well as immediate information about essential public services, including free meals, COVID-19 test site locations, vaccine information, and mental health resources. In partnership with New York Cares, Mission Vet Check recruited and trained volunteers to make compassionate check-in calls to veterans, with a particular focus on reaching those who may not have access to digital information streams, such as our aging or formerly homeless constituent population. Almost a quarter of the veterans who volunteered have been able to speak with our referred to services. A quarter of those we spoke with were referred to services. The most common service requests have been for food assistance, unemployment support, information about COVID testing and vaccines, and general healthcare questions. I am proud to share that Mission Vet Check is still an ongoing outreach effort to this day. Our agency even won the VA's Abraham Lincoln Pillar of Excellence Award for this program, an honor that is bestowed upon us just last month at the National Association of State Directors of Veterans Affairs Midwinter Conference. Through Mission Vet Check, though Mission Vet Check was born during the pandemic, we now find it a useful tool to consistently engage our veterans, especially those who are not connected to the world of digital information. Since the launch of Mission Vet Check in May of 2020, more than 36,000 calls have been made with an approximate answer rate of 25%, resulting in over 100 calls per week. Of those answered calls, DVS has fielded over 1,200 requests for service since launching. These requests range from food assistance to eviction prevention, mental health, and benefits navigation support. This transformative outreach program operates at a very low cost to the agency thanks to the strength of our public-private partnership with New York Cares and their dedicated volunteers. Housing homeless veterans is one of the foundational pillars of this agency. Since the start of our Housing and Support Services program in 2016, DVS has placed a total of 1,056 veterans experiencing homelessness in permanent and supportive housing. In FY21 alone, we housed 117 veterans, and during the first 4 months of FY22, we've housed 21 veterans. Our team utilizes existing subsidy programs such as CityFEPS, HUD-VASH, and HUD-VASH Continuum to provide our constituency with various housing options. More than 250 veterans to date have received HUD-VASH vouchers. In coordination with the Department of Homeless Services, DVS works with 4 federal grantees known as Supportive Services for Veteran Families organizations to place our veterans into their new permanent homes. These organizations include Help USA, Jericho Project, Services for the Underserved, and Volunteers of America. In addition, our housing team leverages city-funded initiatives to encourage landlords to house veterans, thus increasing the supply of available permanent home options for our clients. Thanks to our support, 2 major housing developers were awarded grants from the New York State Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative to create new units of supportive and affordable housing specifically for NYC veterans. This is a major step toward eliminating the housing insecurity experienced by our most high-need veterans. I'm also proud to share that the COVID-19 pandemic did not halt our housing efforts during the height of the crisis back in 2020. Apartment viewings and interviews were shifted to virtual modes. Videos of available units were shared, and management companies opted to complete phone or video call interviews with potential veteran applicants. When virtual options were not sufficient, our staff continued to conduct in-person inspections of units, pick up and drop off documentation, and assist with the veterans' move. When the darkest days of the virus started to subside in the fall of 2021, our housing team returned to the shelters full-time to continue serving our clients in person. Last year, we celebrated the housing of our 1,000th client, Miss Jocelyn Miller, an Army veteran who moved into her new 1-bedroom apartment on the Lower East Side thanks to the support of DVS. While these numbers are impressive and a measure of our staff's work and dedication, it is the individual lives that are impacted that are our greatest wins. For example, in October of 2020, one of our veteran peer coordinators housed an Army veteran and his family using a HUD-VASH Continuum voucher in the Bronx. A year after the veteran was housed, the veteran contacted his coordinator for help, saying there were repairs in the unit that had to be completed in order for him to remain in the unit. The peer coordinator guided the veteran through the process of obtaining a transfer voucher in case he needed to relocate, and at the same time advocated with the landlord to get the work done in the unit, giving the veteran the option to remain stably housed. The peer coordinator worked with the landlord, repairs were completed, and the veteran peer coordinator referred the veteran to a partner organization to cover additional bills that accrued. The veteran was able to remain safely housed with his school-aged children and his newborn child, keeping them in their school and neighborhood. In addition to providing permanent housing solutions to our homeless veterans, DVS also offers information about affordable housing and home ownership options. I invite the community to visit nyc.gov/vethousing. It's nyc.gov/vethousing to find a comprehensive resource guide that contains information about utility bill assistance, a list of donation centers that offer clothing and household goods, and an eviction prevention frequently asked questions page to assist veterans who are in danger of eviction. Another key feature on this page is our Housing Ladder, which is a resource that provides access to housing information for veterans at every stage of their housing journey. It includes information about NYCHA, veterans Mitchell-Lama preference, senior housing, the VA home loan, and the veterans property tax exemption. That's nyc.gov/vetladder. It's nyc.gov/vetladder for the Housing Ladder. In addition to featuring this information on our website, our staff is also well-versed in these topic areas and can help over the telephone or at outreach events. Accessing benefits can be especially frustrating and overwhelming for active duty service members who are transitioning from the military to civilian life, and to our senior veterans. Our team is here to help our community make sense of this landscape, and when necessary, nonprofit and veteran service organizations are leveraged through our Vet Connect NYC referral system to provide added assistance. With more than 40 active service providers, Vet Connect NYC offers another layer of care and access to crucial resources. In fiscal year 2021, Vet Connect NYC facilitated 1,009 service episodes for veterans and their families who were seeking assistance. Our care coordinators are also trained to help veterans navigate their benefits, resources, and entitlements. The total number of requests for assistance that our team fielded through Vet Connect NYC and our outreach was 8,572 in FY21 and 430 for the first 4 months of FY22. If you are a veteran in need of support who is hearing this testimony today, I urge you to reach out to our office by calling us at 212-416-5250 or by visiting nyc.gov/vetconnectnyc. It's 212-416-5250 or visit nyc.gov/vetconnectnyc. The need for mental health services for veterans has increased significantly as it has for the general population during the pandemic. With the support from the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health, in 2021, DVS began the implementation of 2 health assessments known as the Patient Health Questionnaire 9, or PHQ-9, and the General Anxiety Disorder 7, or GAD-7, to screen our clients for depression and anxiety. Since February of 2021, DVS staff have conducted over 220 health assessments, for which 49 indicated severe anxiety or depression. Over that 12-month period, DVS has made 167 referrals to mental health services. That is more than 3 times the number of referrals compared to the period before the implementation of health screeners. This measure has helped enhance DVS's ability to identify the mental health needs of our clients more accurately and to connect them to appropriate health and wellness resources in a timely fashion. DVS also has a wealth of information of mental health resources featured on our website. Thanks to a recommendation from the Veterans Advisory Board, we have developed a comprehensive flyer about peer support and crisis information. The flyer can be found by visiting nyc.gov/vethealth and clicking peer support for veterans in NYC. It's nyc.gov/vethealth and click peer support for veterans in NYC. Through a partnership with the Mayor's Public Engagement Unit, DVS also engages veterans about enrolling in VA healthcare. It's estimated that only 30% of our veterans are connected to the VA system, and we strongly believe this number should be increased to ensure our veterans have access to the free healthcare services they are entitled to. Providing access to fresh food is another area of keen focus for DVS, a need that became particularly prevalent during the pandemic. Many of our veterans were afraid to leave their homes when the virus was raging, and in response, DVS coordinators received training and certification to become authorized enrollers for the city's then operational Get Food NYC program. DVS diligently fielded 6,490 requests for food while the program was still operational. In July of 2020, we also created a public partnership with the governor's office, HelloFresh, the Campaign Against Hunger, Black Veterans for Social Justice, and 20 plus different military and veteran service organizations to provide roughly 1,200 fresh meals per week since July of 2020 to veteran and military families. Corrections, 2,000 fresh meals per week since July of 2020 to veterans and military families. I'm proud to share that this partnership is still operating to this day as a means of providing supplemental fresh food to our community. To date, the partnership has distributed more than 145,000 fresh meal kits to veterans, service members, and their families. DVS values its no wrong door approach when it comes to connecting veterans with the services and benefits they have rightfully earned, whether it is engaging our staff at an outreach event, via telephone call, through an in-person office visit, or by way of our online referral system, That Connect NYC. Our community affairs team is expertly trained and ready to respond to the needs of our constituents. When it comes to providing services and referrals, our care coordination team focuses on core areas, including, but not limited to, VA disability claims, benefits navigation support, funeral honors, food assistance, and health and wellness referrals. We have 8 full-time staff members specifically dedicated to benefits and care coordination services, 3 of which solely focus on processing VA disability claims. DVS launched its VA claims processing efforts during the middle of the pandemic because we believed it was imperative for our community to have additional income streams at a time of unprecedented unemployment and job loss. Our team conducted intake and collected documents virtually and by mail when necessary to ensure all veterans had equal access to this new agency service. Our claims team has been accredited by the New York State Division of Veteran Services to process claims related to disability compensation, survivor's pension, dependent indemnity compensation, and education. Since July of 2020, DVS has successfully actioned 226 claim submissions, the vast majority of which involved a claim of disability. Only 14.9% of New York City's veterans currently receive disability compensation, and we believe the number of those who are eligible may be much higher. That's why we are committed to scaling this effort through increased outreach and by bringing on ancillary support staff. With these additional measures, we are confident that our VA disability claim services will reach more veterans in the months and years ahead. DVS also seeks to increase the number of veterans who have access to benefits across all levels. It is estimated that approximately 10% of the over 210,000 veterans living in New York City hold a less than honorable discharge status. Spread across all wartime eras, discharges under dishonorable conditions have prevented many veterans from concluding their service with pride and receiving the benefits afforded to them. While DVS serves all veterans regardless of discharge status, we seek to help a greater number of veterans upgrade their discharges so they may access a broader range of federal services. DVS awarded $1.5 million over 3 years to nonprofit legal organizations in New York Legal Assistance Group and the Veterans Advocacy Project to address the growing backlog of discharge cases. In doing so, we hope to not only remove that backlog, but to return the proper recognition these veterans deserve. Known as Discharge Upgrade Assistance Legal Services, or DUALS program, DVS, along with our expert legal services partners, will make a positive impact on the lives of hundreds of veterans. We are aware of the unemployment and underemployment issues that all too often affect our community. That is why DVS launched Vet Connect Pro, a first in the nation employment tool designed to connect veteran job seekers to employment opportunities in the public and private sectors. A model for other cities, the site provides veterans with access to special technology features, including a proprietary military skills translator, a robust dashboard with job postings from city agencies, information about earned benefits, and free professional development training courses. The translator, operated by JobPath, can interpret and match over 7,000 military occupational skills to thousands of available jobs by leveraging specs from the Department of Labor and the Society of Human Resource Managers. The site also includes information about civil service exams, fee waivers for veterans, and special hiring programs for people with disabilities. DVS has allocated $350,000 for the past 2 years to fund this innovative tool. DVS also remains committed to promoting programs that provide pathways to professional development opportunities, such as our Service-to-Service Mentorship Program, the DoD's SkillBridge Internship Program, and DFTA's Senior Employment Program. In the fall of 2019, DVS launched the Service-to-Service Program. Through this program, veterans and AmeriCorps alumni are paired with a city employee mentor to learn the intricacies of city government, as well as receive advice on job seeking and employment opportunities. To date, over 30 veterans have been paired with members from city agencies such as the Department of Small Business Services, FDNY, the Department of Transportation, NYCC, and the Public Advocate's Office. DVS is also dedicated to empowering veteran entrepreneurs by helping them access business development opportunities, capital financing, supply chain diversity programs, and networking events. This spring, DVS will launch the Veteran Business Leadership Association, a collaborative that will host workshops and roundtable discussions that touch on each of these topic areas. We're excited to start this program as it directly speaks to one of the recommendations made in the roadmap for supporting our veteran-owned businesses report that was developed by the Department of Small Business Services and the Mayor's Office of Contract Services in 2014. In July of 2021, DVS also launched Vet Biz Map NYC, an interactive map that geographically showcases more than 300 veteran-owned businesses from across the city. Representative industries include consulting, construction, material goods, and food and beverage businesses. I urge every member of our committee to help DVS promote this site so we can collectively support our local economies and drive commerce to these noble business owners, many of whom are service-connected veteran-owned businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, and MWBE certified. The map also includes information about each business's certification status, in addition to contact and website information. That's nyc.gov/vetbizmap. Just nyc.gov/vetbizmap. In conclusion, the programs and services that I mentioned today are part of our agency's core offerings and will remain budget priorities for FY23. In closing, I'd like to thank the New York City veteran community for trusting us to serve you. While there is always more work to be done, we want each of you to know that we are here and that we care. I look forward to partnering with Mayor Adams and the Council Committee on Veterans to expand our outreach, increase our services, and to improve our efficiency. It is an honor and privilege to serve all of you, and I thank you for allowing me to testify before you today. One more time, the phone number for DVS is 212-416-5250. Website is nyc.gov/vets. Email address is connect@veterans.nyc.gov. And on social media, the handle is @NYCVeterans. I'm pleased to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Hendon. I will now turn it over to questions from Chair Holden. Panelists from the admin, please stay unmuted if possible during this question and answer period. Thank you, Chair Holden. Please begin.
Thank you, Commissioner. Wow, that was 7 pages of great testimony. I really appreciate that. And we got a very good summary of your department, your agency. I also we've been joined by Council Member Palladino. I want to also mention that I want to thank Deputy Commissioner Paul Vallone, who's crossed over to the other side, and we welcome him. A colleague of mine for many years, and Assistant Commissioner Lochran. I want to welcome him also. But Commissioner, just it's very impressive testimony. Let's talk about the savings program that your agency has to do, like many other agencies. And this is a budget hearing, but DVS will generate savings of $174,000 in fiscal 2022. And baseline savings of $178,000 beginning in fiscal 2023 through the reduction of 4 vacant positions across the agency. What anticipated impact will this savings have on your agency operations?
Thank you so much for the question, Mr. Chair. I think for us, it's just encouraging us to do everything we can to continue to leverage what's in front of us and work smarter versus harder here. We always say that 3 things we do. We either connect veterans to services, We will create a 1 + 1 = 3 dynamic where we work with stakeholders to generate synergies so we can still get the end state of helping our people. Or when it gets dirty, we will roll up our sleeves and do the work ourselves. I think that the savings, they put us in a spot where we continue to work arm in arm with our other veteran entities, and not just the VSOs as far as organizations in the city, but leveraging our state and our federal partners to still meet mission and do right by connecting, mobilizing, and empowering our service members, past and present, and their families.
But you're still a very small agency. You have 36, I think, people working in the agency now, something like that. So if some people, let's say we go through another pandemic, a variant, or let's say even something as the flu, it does have an impact on your agency. Do you anticipate any personnel issues arising from the cuts?
I feel like having come through this pandemic, I feel like we've gotten to a place where our systems are so strong enough and our relationships with the community are strong enough where, no matter what's coming up as far as any storms ahead, I feel like we've gotten through the worst of it with regard to any potential challenges we have. And, I always am quick to remember we're still a young agency too. We're not yet 6 years old. Our 6th birthday is April 8th this year. And this is a growing process for us. And so, I look at it as, even though we've got some of these cuts with the pegs across the board, I feel like we're in a place where we built a decent playbook and a good foundation to be able to just handle what comes at us. And at the worst is to our rear, Mr. Chair.
Have you had any conversations with OMB on whether there will be a savings program in the executive budget?
We've been in active talks with OMB, Mr. Chair. I can't speak as far as a savings program of the budget. The talks with OMB typically deal with a lot of things we're covering on this council hearing today, as far as getting our ducks in a row with what we look like as we grow. So I can say that we have been in those ongoing talks with them about, just the growth and having more resources in the organization. I can't speak to it as far as anything beyond what we've already done with cuts, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's talk about the expansion of the Joseph P. Dwyer program statewide. The fiscal 2023 executive state budget includes $7.7 million to expand the Dwyer peer-to-peer veteran support program statewide, providing, it provides vital peer support and counseling services to veterans who are transitioning from military service to civilian life. How has DVS worked with its private, public, and nonprofit partners to inform them of this program expansion?
We maintain ongoing lines of communication with our partners who we deal with on the Vet, Connect NYC platform, which we have, more than 40 providers there. That's one piece of this. Another piece of it is, getting a handle on how much of the 7.7 million is going to come to New York City as far as what we will see and be able to make sure it gets out to our folks. Just me looking at the executive state budget at the suggested, what was templated, we see there's 3 different drops of money that have been proposed, not agreed to yet. One is a $400,000 drop of Dwyer money. Another's another $400,000 drop, and another's $150,000 drop, Mr. Chair. And so for us, it's waiting to see what the final number is that comes of that. And then really tying in, to me, the key for us when we think about these kind of conversations is speaking with our Veterans Advisory Board and just speaking to them, saying, hey, look, here's what the count is. Let's just talk and get some thoughts on the board on how we can best, bring value to the community in the spirit of Dwyer with these resources. And so between the Vet Connect platform, between reaching out to the VAB, our Veteran Advisory Board members, just to get some wisdom on it. And also, coming back to you all also on the committee, these are different, I guess, modalities for us. Right now, we're in a situation we're waiting to see exactly how much will come to the city of New York.
Let's talk about some funding needs. If the Department of, if the Department of Veteran Services was allocated additional resources, you're not going to turn them down, where would you allocate those resources? I just think that, given it's such a small agency, we should all fight for additional resources. But if you were allocated additional resources, where would you put that towards?
I want to level set by, and thank you for that question. The three priorities for us right now, we've said this externally as well. We said, I think, at the last Veterans Advisory Board meeting. One is making sure more veterans can access benefits as far as earned benefits. So think especially about the VA claims piece. Another one is increasing employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for our veterans. And then a third one is inspiring more service members to elect to move here, to live, to learn, to work in New York City. And so, looking at that as far as those being our priorities, when, we think about, where we would use resources, I think top would be the claims piece, to continue to chop the tree on helping more of our veterans process claims and their loved ones. And the next piece will be the outreach component, Mr. Chair. Having more folks, the employment entrepreneurship component, a lot of it is getting in front of the right employers to make sure they know that we've got this great reservoir of veterans we can put them in touch with, so they can be able to hire. A lot of same thing for entrepreneurship, making sure a business knows I've got a supplier diversity program. There's a veteran-owned business here. I see it on nyc.gov/vetbizmap. Let me go find them. And the same thing for the live, learn, work in New York City piece, where it's attracting new veterans to the city. Like, I'm not originally from here. I'm from Florida, as an example, to getting people who signed up for the military who were from here to come home. And so I think it's claims and it's outreach as far as two top things we would seek to invest in, Mr. Chair.
Well, certainly with outreach. If I think in your testimony you said 30% of New York City veterans are in touch with the VA, which is a very low number. Am I correct on that? 30%?
Let me clarify that. That's a very good question. I'm so sorry. And these numbers, and we can get it to you. All of this is publicly available. We pull it from the VA publishes something called a gross domestic expenditure report. Anyone can Google VA gross domestic expenditure report. When you get to this website, then you see a page where you can pull out information broken out by county, by congressional district, by state. And so the most recent one, FY20, the national number of veterans who use VA healthcare is 31.4%. So we say over 30, it's 31.4% is the national number. The number for New York State is 28.2%. 28.2% New York State. Number for New York City is 24.1%. And this is 24.1%, meaning that this is the number of people who were unique patients in the VA's healthcare system during FY20. So it's not a direct, it's the closest proxy we have for how many veterans are using VA benefits, is what number of unique patients have we seen using the VA healthcare system in the 5 boroughs. So yeah, I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify that piece.
Well, we've heard certified claims specialists at DVS are not only responsible for working with veterans, but also responsible for all veteran outreach, which means meetings with veteran service organizations and thinking of new ways to connect with New York City veterans population. Would it be helpful to hire more outreach coordinators and more certified claims specialists?
Yeah, it would be, Mr. Chair. It would be. And when you look at the evolution of the agency, when I first came in this job, I started 3 months before the pandemic. We had a situation where, that coordinator, that person, that community coordinator was handling a little bit of everything. And so that coordinator would help someone with whatever their issue was as far as accessing benefits or connecting to different organizations or, helping someone with a resume, you name it. That coordinator had outreach, but they were also serving. And so you would have one person who's a community coordinator who's juggling so many different pieces. What we've tried to do as best we can is shift to a model where we have folks who are dedicated to just focusing on doing the claims work. We have someone who's just dedicated on getting the word out. And so this is why it's important to grow the outreach, but to have the claims piece. We look at our team right now, 3 people are only tasked with focusing on doing claims work right now in the agency. And so, we tried to get away from this, but the legacy of DVS has been, having folks juggling, and we're trying to say, no, you got this one ball, you got this one ball, you got this one ball.
Let's talk about contracts. Several nonprofits have expressed concern and frustration with the contracting process. Specifically, nonprofits funded under the City Council Veterans Initiatives complain that the Department of Youth and Community Development does not really understand veterans issues and that they would prefer DVS to manage those discretionary rewards. How does DVS currently interact with DYCD to ensure a smooth operation of the disbursement of city council discretionary awards.
You know, we have an ombudsman who, when a veteran reaches out to us, an organization reaches out and say, I'm having some issues, we will, be sure to have that ombudsman get into it to tie in with the DYCDs of the world, with the DOHMHs of the world, with the HRAs, whomever manages the contract. We'll have them tie in. That's what we do now, and it's what we've done in the past, Mr. Chair. I can think of a situation right now where one of our, veteran service organizations is in a back and forth, and we've done what we can to get involved directly with DYCD as a perfect example of this, to make sure that things are moving appropriately and that balls aren't being dropped. What we see come FY23, Mr. Chair, we want to take all the contracts that are $20,000 or less and just put hands on them as an agency and have it just, we be the group that deals with this instead of the veteran organization having to go and deal with, one of the larger groups dealing with the DIF, they're dealing with DYCD, dealing with DOHMH, et cetera. We want to own these. Looking at last year's contracts that were awarded, I think it was about 50 that went out that were discretionary funded. When we look at it, 24 of them were $20,000 or less. We see these as the small dollar contracts. Let's say someone's putting together a parade in Little Neck Douglas, as an example, or someone's putting together a special event for Memorial Day, et cetera. We want those contracts so we can work with our VSOs to make sure they get through the process. A larger 250,000 or 500,000, like a larger contract, the group that wins that typically has a good handle on how to navigate that process for the larger nonprofits that win that. But for the smaller contracts, come July 1st, we want hands on anything that is $20,000 or less so we can, this is why this agency was founded. One of the reasons was to be able to provide value to our VSOs when they get these contracts and they're dealing with the city government and they need help as far as what to do.
Yeah, that's smart, because we've seen the smaller guys just can't handle the paperwork and they just overwhelmed, and they have so few staff that they many times give up. They just won't take the award, and I've seen that across the board, not only with veterans but other groups too. So, have you had any? Your department have any discussions with OMB to hire, staff to manage those contracts? OMB needs to probably be, get involved in this a little bit.
It's part of this larger discussion we're having with OMB and with our leadership on what expansion looks like. Right before everything shut down in March of 2020, we had an opening out where we were looking to hire someone who would be able to do this type of work. And then pandemic hit and everything was placed on pause as far as hiring. So, it's something that's very high on our list. We're happy to get back in the foxhole on it come July 1st with this new fiscal year, but it is a part of the discussions we have with OMB. To us, Mr. Chair, this also, not only is it doing right by our people, but it also helps inform the outreach aspect of the work, because we're that much more plugged in with veterans who are doing things throughout the city so that we can see how we can integrate whatever we're offering, whatever services we have, and connect them to any other groups that we know need to be connected just through tying in with somebody as they go through a contract. Often, these are for events.
So we're still looking at hiring an agency chief contracting officer. So I'm glad to hear that. And hopefully, we can work together. You could let us know what the status of that and some of your, negotiations for that, because we think that's a very, very important part. I'm going to bring up mental health. I'll ask a few questions and I'll turn it over to my colleagues in the council to maybe they have a few questions, then I'll come back. But let's talk about can you specify which programs DVS operates that focuses on mental health for veterans, other than what you mentioned already?
I feel like the mental health piece is more like that 1 + 1 = 3 dynamic for us, where for us, we're laser focused on if there are members of our community who have mental health needs or mental health first aid crises, that we know who they are so we can right away tie them in to any of our partners who can really go that next level with helping somebody get to a good place. And it's everything from looking at it with a city lens, a state lens, a federal lens. On the city level, it's connecting with Office of Community Mental Health and its resources. From a state level, it's tying in with something called the Governor's Challenge to prevent veteran suicide and any benefits associated with that. There's a separate website, all with resources there. From the federal side, it's our partners at the VA, and it's our friends with the Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration and work they've done to build communities of practice that we've done in partnership throughout the city. I'm going to turn it over to Jason Larfman and speak a little more on this mental health piece. But to me, I look at it as we do what we can to make sure we know whether a veteran is in crisis, dealing with anxiety, with depression. We, offer to give that screener to anyone who comes to us so we can see if there's anything under the surface that we don't know about. Once we know that crisis is there, if it is, then think of the dialogue as, I'm the waiter, you're at the restaurant, I'm trying to help you figure out what meal is best. What would you like as far as to get you to a good place and get you full? And on top of that, there's also a nonprofit angle here with tying in with several of our nonprofit partners as well to say, here are the host of things. How can we best find the thing that meets you where you are to get you better? And we always follow up. And I want to turn it over to Jason Larfman just to add anything on the mental health piece.
And I think also Paul Balone also has his hand.
Yes, I flagged for our staff,
I
the muter. Someone unmute? Okay, we're unmuted. We're back on. Sorry, Chair Holden, didn't mean to interrupt. We were like behind the scenes trying to fix that. So all good.
Oh, here he is.
I'm back.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Chair, for that question. Everybody understands that mental health is one of the most important, if not the most important aspect of our work. And as the Commissioner said, we try to ensure that everything we do has a mental health component to it, Chair. So when you ask, what our programming is, to be honest, every part of our programming includes some mental health aspect. The reason why is because we don't believe that every veteran comes to our office or family member.
Can you get that?
Requesting mental health services. They would come requesting housing services, or that they're facing an eviction need, or they need a job. And so it's a part of our staff's triaging and that peer-to-peer model to kind of uncover those mental health needs. As the Commissioner has mentioned in the testimony, the GAD-7 and the PHQ-9 have really done wonders for our staff and for us to really get a more accurate picture of what the mental health need is of our community. In the testimony, as you heard, our mental health referrals increased threefold. So that really goes to show you that before we implemented a standardized practice to determine what the actual situation is regarding anxiety and depression, those folks were not really disclosing to us that they have a mental health need. So operationally, we're able to uncover a lot more. But as the Commissioner said, not everybody's ready for that. Speaking firsthand, it took me several different tries and different programs to find the right fit for me as a veteran. We understand that every day our constituents have different challenges. Some days are better than others. So not every day is the best day for a mental health referral for everybody. So we have to continue to work with them throughout the life cycle of whatever service request they had for us and uncover when the right moment is, and to not give up on them, to keep kind of addressing that mental health need and keep encouraging them and coaching them to say it'll be okay. But not every referral and not every constituent wants a referral to the VA, as an example, or to a veteran-specific provider. Sometimes they just want to be recognized as a New Yorker who's also going through mental health needs, like most of our New Yorkers probably are, considering all the challenges we've had recently. So we do our best to train all of our staff and programming to include some mental health component. So we were prepared and being on the offense to try to uncover that mental health need. So I'll stop there.
Right.
Thank you.
Speaking to that, though, how many DVS employees have professional or an educational background that pertains to mental health or psychology, psychiatric trauma? Do you train in mental health first aid or mental health training at all in the agency? Is there room for that?
We do, Chair. That's a great question. We just had a training with New York City Well for all of our direct service staff. So we continue to have a strong relationship with these educational providers on mental health needs. But also, just on the question from the very beginning of how we kind of get by with the staff that we do have, like the Commissioner said, we could always do more with more, but we leverage our veteran service organizations here in New York City tremendously. And there are experts that are well beyond the knowledge, and no matter how many trainings we set up for our staff, Some folks do this day in and day out, so we really rely on them heavily to kind of see through some of those more difficult cases after that referral's been made and they've been accepted. So we kind of pride ourselves on the relationships that we have with our partners here, who are always encouraging us to join committees and training opportunities to help our staff better understand what new mental health components exist, like RTM, and there's a new program at the new school that we're exploring too. There are many new components to mental health needs that every day we find out that there's a new solution to PTSD or TBI. So we're constantly kind of trying to cultivate and maintain those relationships while also getting educated ourselves. But it's a great question, sir. We do have ongoing training whenever those trainings become available to us, also through our crisis intercept mapping partners.
Mr. Chair, if I could add just briefly, the person who works under Jason, who manages our care coordination unit, does have a master's in social work also, so does have some training in that piece of it. And we do have communities of practice we cultivate slowly, borough by borough. We've been rolling out something called crisis intercept mapping to identify who are those veteran-friendly mental health first aid providers in different boroughs. Started with Staten Island, moved on to Queens, and next looking at Brooklyn and the Bronx, so that, it's for us, we play to our strengths, we manage our weaknesses. If we don't have the bench that covers certain things, we know people who can assist there if need be, on top of our federal and state friends.
Right.
And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to jump in, because you were asking before, and I just wanted to get off on the unmute. Coming from where your side is now being on this side, and when we were talking about budget, first of all, thank you to the council members who chose and fought to be on veterans, because that's key for us. And as you know, with our last meeting, we all started with the commissioner's testimony that this village here is on the same page. So it's with a heartfelt appreciation for everyone here. And now that I am with DVS, I have to, give a total complete thank you and shout out to the staff of DVS, because like you said, 35 people they're like angels working with the community and for what they do. And as Jason was just outlining in the commissioner, so when we talk about staff and budget, of course, I think we're the smallest agency in the city. We would love to partake in growth. And I think you can hear with the testimony today how they would do that. And just for perspective, pre-COVID, the agency was at 49. And so with some of the attrition and the staff levels we're at 35. So yeah, I know there's a peg across the board, but I think for the agency, and it's been great working with the new mayor, new speaker, new council, new borough presidents, the council members that are here. I think everyone gets it, right? We're trying to reset being at the bare minimum we're at. And then of course, we'd love to work with the new mayor and OMB to get us to a level so we can even provide more services. And I think one of the things that we can do with the council members that are here, your council staff and offices are veteran service providers. You're in the community. You are fielding those phone calls. So we will be working with a new pilot program with you to interact and bring that together, because the goal is to service veterans. So as DVS, we want to do that as much as we can, but each council member is out there in their district. I see Councilmember Palladino, she has one of the largest amounts, so does Chair Holden, veterans in the district. So partnering together and providing that, I think is a great way going forward for the agency, for the council members, for this new mayor who's got an amazing vision to work with veterans, so that sometimes it's budget, sometimes it's just partnering up with the groups that are doing the right thing.
Thank you. I just have a few other questions, but during the, I was handed a note. Several veteran advocates were commenting during the testimony portion of this hearing that it was their first time hearing about some of the programs you mentioned, Commissioner. Specifically the senior employment by Dycd program. I'm always a critic of government. They put resources into these programs, but they're poor at getting the word out. It's not. I'm not blaming obviously your agency. I think it's just government. It's very difficult to reach everyone. I understand that. But how are these programs advertised currently?
So I so appreciate you bringing this up. This speaks to the heart of the outreach piece, as far as just the need to be able to get outreach out there. You know, we most recently we advertised this program in our newsletter. So I think one of our most recent newsletters talks about the DFTA program and how we're trying to make sure any veterans who is eligible can get in the mix for it. I know that we have nyc.gov/vet seniors on that site. We list the program there. You know, it's something that we are actively promoting in social media. It's just, if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it fall? And so this is why it's so important. I look at benefits as the top, you know, because we need more of our people to be able to obtain those disability ratings that they have earned. They to recognize their mind and bodies and being paid for what's happened to them. Outreach is the next one. So we can be able to just, when we look at our constituents, 8.8 million people in this city, about 210,000 veterans spread throughout 300 plus square miles. It bedevils us to really be able to touch everybody. And so this, I think that you bringing it up speaks directly to where we are as far as a challenge on the outreach front.
Right, because I know you meet with the, I've seen you on the Veterans Advisory Board meetings, but does anybody in you or your staff get in touch with the advocates, during the month or on a continuous basis? Maybe we could have them come into the office maybe more often to go over these programs so that we reach more veterans, because that's the way to trickle down, where from your office, we don't have a budget to do mailings. Obviously, we don't in your agency to do widespread mailings. That maybe we could meet with the advocates a little bit more, whether it's at the, obviously the Veterans Advisory Board is great to meet at, but to get to more, that we do this on a constant basis. And I know, the regular board meetings are good, but sometimes we got to fill in the blanks there. Also, some creative ways to get the word out. And I always, when I bring up this to the mayor's office, at least the previous administration, how we have all these programs, but we don't advertise them. And if we do, it's always online, let's say, where many members, maybe many veterans don't have a computer even. So they really don't get the word. So that's why I said we got to look at more traditional ways to reach people. And we do have a lot of bus shelters and billboards that are out there. Many of them are empty sometimes. So that's why I'm looking at more creative ways that we can get the word out to veterans on the street. And that's a possibility. Do you consider anything like that, Commissioner?
I know that we've had back and forth with the Department of Transportation about getting things out as far as leveraging those bus shelters and different plazas. I just want to mention that. I don't have more details on it. I can circle back to you on that, but that is something we've discussed internally. As far as, I'm completely with you about other forms to be able to engage our veterans that complement the great work being done by our Veterans Advisory Board in their meetings. We've got to talk internally about, is it something, or we convene something, or do we go to something that already exists? I know that the VA has a Community Veterans Engagement Board, which meets routinely and convenes different stakeholders locally. One of our Veterans Advisory Board members, Joe Bello, is the co-chair for the CVEB. And so do we leverage existing things, try to make this 1 + 1 = 3 thing, not reinvent the wheel? But we're very much open to these types of discussions on how we get the word out. I have to add to this. To me, this is about not just going to the veterans we already know, but finding the veterans we don't know. When you're dealing with a situation where only about a quarter of New York City veterans self-identifies or is currently in the tribe, so to speak, how do we go find the 3 people for everyone you see like me? And so these are discussions we have about, if someone's trying to enroll in, the New York State of Health, ask them questions to see if they're eligible for VA healthcare. Let's see if we can pick a few up like that. This is the questions of, we reached out not long ago to NYCC and the leadership of their tenants association as a means to identify veterans who are living in NYCC, as an example. We are, saying, okay, do we go to, another one we brought up is a political director of a union knows who all of the veterans are in his or her local. Why don't we start hitting these people up? So just trying to be out of the box with finding people in places where they may not outright identify as veterans, but where there will be a touch point. Even the community education councils, the community boards. This is why outreach is important, because we've got to get in front of places that don't traditionally see where places where the veterans are, but people don't think to ask if that person is a veteran.
And Commissioner, if I may, we spoke about, the first step is identifying a veteran, right? So if you've got the first fact that the commissioner said was 70% of veterans are over the age 55. Well, you've got DFTA screaming at you when you hear that name. So the partnership and coordination with other city agencies is also a big help as to what programs, how they are working with veterans, and to make sure that data gets back to DVS. And I know Chair Holden, you mentioned about open door. I mean, our door is always open. So if there is a group that wants to meet, or else, this is the most dedicated group of folks trying to do the best by veterans. So, you can always do better, but I don't think there's a day that goes by we're not interacting with another agency.
Yeah, and also, thank you, Paul. I also want to add here that we do intend to look at putting funding behind an advertising budget in fiscal year 23. So that will help. And on the DFTA program, it is fairly new. So anyone that is listening, we really encourage people to become familiar with it. Speaking more about our staff and how far we go with what we have, partnering with DFTA on this employment program is bringing the opportunity to have those senior vets who want to leverage that partnership with DFTA and come work at DVS to provide us some support and bring that knowledge of their entire career and livelihood in New York City into our office and build that bridge between the younger generation of vets that are here and the older generation of vets. So that's really important to us, and it's fairly new. So please get that word out for us, because we are eager and excited to bring on some senior veterans to work with our folks at DVS to expand our services.
Right. Just on what I mentioned about the creative ways to get the word out. I'm a big opponent of billboards that these billboard companies that come into our neighborhood. They're usually around, the expressways or railroads. And then many times they don't have a particular month or months booked for an ad, and you'll see it peeling, the ad peeling. And just dropping to the ground. So I had actually legislation about that. But I think if we could, and I'll reach out and certainly talk to them. They should provide a public service. The fact that they're just, this eyesore billboard is up, and the fact that it's actually not booked for a particular month or months, that they should actually do a public service and reach out to organizations such as veterans, or at least get the word out. So I'm going to have discussions with them on that. I think the only thing the city would have to do is design the billboard, but I think we could look at that as a creative way to reach out to get the word out to our veterans. So I want to turn it back to committee council. I think some of my colleagues have some questions.
Yes, they do. Thank you, Chair Holden. I will now call on council members in the order they have used the Zoom raise hand function. If you would like to ask a question and you have not yet used the Zoom raise hand function, please do so now. Council members, please keep your questions to 5 minutes. The Sergeant at Arms will keep a timer and will let you know when your time is up. You should begin once I have called on you and the Sergeant has announced that you may begin. First, we'll hear from Councilmember Palladino. Councilmember Palladino, you may begin. Oh wait, I don't know if she's still on here. Give me 1 second. She had her hand raised and I think she dropped off. Okay. I don't see any hands raised at this moment. I'll give it another second. If Councilmember Palladino logs back on, we'll turn back to her. But Chair, if you want to follow up with questions for the admin, and then we'll wrap it up and turn over to public testimony.
Okay, we lost.
Yeah, she's not logged on right now, and Councilmember Nurse doesn't have any questions, so I'm turning it back to you. If Palladino comes back on, we'll turn back to her. Okay.
All right, thank you. Let me go back to the homeless situation. Commissioner, does DVS work with DHS or HRA to track the number of homeless veterans in New York City and the services they are receiving? That seems to be a problem in New York City. And obviously, I think we should never have a homeless veteran living on the street. Nobody should be living on the street, obviously, but especially a homeless veteran who gave service to our country. They should not be living on the street. But what about have you worked with DHS and HRA to track the homeless veterans?
We absolutely, and just to go back in time, when they first created our agency in 2016, they took 8 bodies from DHS and put them with, I think it was like 4 bodies at the time, but with the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs to create DVS. And just so for perspective, we've got a very, very close, it's almost like we came from the rib, so to speak, of that group. So we are very, very close to DSS, to HRA, to DHS. I'll say a little bit and then turn over to JL to finish on this one. When we look at our count, we're at 2011, it was 4,677 homeless veterans in New York City. 2021, the most recent point in time, counted 625. So there's been a huge reduction, but the work's not over. We want to continue to push to drive these numbers down as far as our veteran homeless counts. And so it's very, what we have found, it was something I mentioned in testimony, we need more supportive housing for our veterans. And so we work actively as far as talking with DSS, HRA about this piece of it, and also trying to make sure more supportive housing specifically for veterans is built. And that's why we advocate for certain developers who said, hey, I will build for veterans in New York City if I receive funding through the Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative. And last year, 2 different developers that we'd written letters of support for received funding, where we're waiting to get the full confirmation. We believe that'll be 150 supportive housing units to be made for veterans. When you've got 600 or so as our count in the shelter system, 150 is a big deal as far as moving the needle. And so we want to continue to do that, to continue to have housing built in the covenant of the building, they will remain veteran supportive. And so this is just, one of many different aspects of how we play nice in the foxhole with folks who do this at the state and city levels. And I'll turn it over to JL, anything he wants to add to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, it's a great question. And, it's obviously a key component of the work we do with a department size of 39 to 40 to house 600 homeless veterans. Our housing team is mighty and strong. I often compare them to a special ops unit because they are, less than 10 in size, and they work diligently with the Department of Homeless Services and HRA to coordinate the facilitation of that homeless veteran moving into that permanent housing. We do great work with DHS. I want to take a moment here to thank them for all the times that they've partnered with us on several projects, and particularly supportive housing. DHS operates the supportive housing the city operates, and they always make us aware of what's available, and they help us facilitate that for our homeless veterans. But just also to give you some breakdown, this is a good opportunity for me to share with you that about 20 to 30% over the last 2 fiscal years of the vets that we housed that were homeless were using city subsidies, which means that of city tax levy dollars, only 20 to 30% of our homeless veterans were utilizing that rental subsidy to move into permanent housing, meaning that 70 to 80% over the last 2 years were federal subsidies in the form of HUD-VASH Continuum, or regular Section 8. So it's something that we really like to talk about here, especially with the topic being our budget, because those city tax levy dollars are going to the homeless, non-homeless veteran population that really need it, that don't have access to those federal resources the way veterans do. So in many ways, we're really bringing a lot of federal money back into the city because of the accessibility that our homeless veterans and our veterans in general have to that federal money. So we're really proud of that, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the help of NYCHA, DHS, and HPD as well. So I just want to acknowledge them.
All right, thank you. I see Councilmember Palladino has logged back on.
Yes.
Okay, do you still have a question?
You're muted. Give me 1 second. Hold on, Councilmember Palladino. We're going to unmute you. 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Ricky, can you please unmute Councilmember Palladino, please? Sorry, we're having technical difficulty here. She's not, can you accept Councilmember Palladino? We're asking you to unmute. I'm sorry for all the tech issues.
How's that?
There you
That's
go.
good, that's
There
Perfect.
you go. We're having technical difficulties here also. We just had the new internet installed on Thursday of last week, and I keep blinking in and out of every meeting that I'm on, so it's a little frustrating, so I'm sorry. I probably missed about the last 8 minutes. My hand was up previously to state that, to reiterate actually, what Chair Holden said, which was, I was very concerned about the age being, up there and the only form of communication being online, it seems. A great many of their programs that are available, and there are many, and I thank you all because I know that you're doing this with a huge heart. But we also recognize the fact that so many of our veterans being up there in years have no access to computers, don't know how to work and don't know how to work one if they do have one. It's cell phone. And again, to reiterate and to back up what Paul had said earlier, I'm in District 19. The veterans I have a very large veteran community here. I'm thrilled to death to be on this committee. And I do believe that things need to be brought down to a local level where they could come into my office, the seniors especially, and have these printouts already that's available online. But I am prepared to have an area of my office set aside for anybody who wants to come in where they can get these applications and learn more about it through an advocate in my office. We do have a job to our constituents, and we need to do it on a personal level. It's great that it's online, and maybe their sons or daughters will take them online, and we can help them out that way. But for now, I want my office to be able to service the veterans in my community. I will actively pursue that through my social media, as well as whatever I put out in my newsletters or my emails. It's best for people to know that. The other thing is I serve on the mental health committee. I'm thrilled about that. These are probably two of the best committees that I really wanted to be on. In dealing with mental health, I've been to many different nonprofits here in the area, and they all talk about young children and teenagers and seniors, but few talk about veterans. Now, to back up what Jason said, a lot of the vets want to just be known as plain old New Yorkers that are having and going through their anxiety and depression. We are all in a massive state. It's taken over a lot of people's state of mind, that it makes them dysfunctional. So to know that they could go to a place in Bayside in my district, or a place in Little Neck, Douglaston, I'd like to look into, and of course we have our VFWs, but they're closing rapidly. We have our American Legion halls, where we could get together with the seniors and some younger people, where they could come together and talk it out. So there's a lot of different ways I want to go about this. This is an extremely important committee. And again, local level, mental health, and reaching the majority of the veterans. And that's our job, and their seniors. And I want to be able to do that here in my office. As soon as this meeting started, that was my biggest thing, was how everything is there, but it's all on the internet, and how many people do not know how to navigate the internet.
And Councilmember Palladino, that's exactly what we were talking about just when you got on, about partnering up with each of the council member offices. Because in the totality of it, you are the front lines for in your council member district and the veterans that reside there. So each council member knows best exactly how to do that. So yeah, we look forward. I'll touch base with you after this, how we can make that partnership and also to better utilize all the resources.
That would be great, Paul, seeing as you're right down the block. Thank you, Paul.
And Councilman, I just want to add to this. When we talk about outreach, it's not just about bodies for outreach. It's also about things like, being able to print those materials out and nail these things out. So a lot of it is us, trying to leverage best practices that you already do right now in the 19th, for instance, as far as how are you getting a hold of people? And so those things take resources. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then something you mentioned about the VFWs and the American Legion halls. We're working to try to get the young folks to come here, Councilmember Palladino, everyone. We are. It's not as impossible as it sounds.
No.
About 200,000 people leave the service each year. Half settle down in a place they're not from. We want to attract more people to New York City. And so that's why I said that's the third thing, between benefits being the top, outreach being number two, and then just attracting the next generation of vets. So yeah.
And Commissioner, I just want to add for Councilwoman Palladino here. In 2020, we did have a program, micro grant program for VFWs and American Legions and veteran service organizations. We're open to exploring that again in 2022. We'd love to work with your office. We hate to hear about our VFWs and American Legion VSOs closing down. It's something that we're very conscious of, and we're working diligently to try to expand resources and access to capital to make sure that doesn't happen. And certainly open to talking with you and Paul about that partnership, working with council offices as well. So eager to meet with you in person about that.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a big issue, by the way, and I think most people's district, especially Councilmember Palladino's, my district, we have a lot of veterans. We have a lot of posts, American Legion, halls, et cetera. And they're in, some of them are in very bad shape. Some of them are closing.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I'd like to make this an issue. Actually, I had one that was devastated. It got 5 feet of water in the basement after the tropical storm, and they're still trying to recover. We're still trying to find ways to fund them where they could, restore the hall. So that's a big issue in my district and in many districts around the city. But Commissioner, I just want to bring up a couple of things. And by the way, on the tracking of the homeless, let me just go back to that. Do we know what council districts and community boards have the homeless veterans that, we have numbers for those districts? And if you do track that, could you share that with us?
I'm going to defer to Jason to add on to this. I don't know that we track it at the council level, Mr. Chair. I'll add to Jason, it's his team that leads this. I haven't seen anything so far in my time as commissioner that tracks homeless veterans at that level.
Or community boards or
community, yeah. Jail, anything you want to add to this, Jail?
No, but I mean, I do, but unfortunately, I don't know if we have that data broken down by district, but I know it's something that we've been talking about with our service partners who help us with our referral. And that right now we have it by zip code, but we would like to cross-reference at some point, like where the service requests are coming from per council district and maybe even assembly, state districts, so that we can give more accurate pictures to say someone like you, Chair, and in your district alone, what service requests are we getting? Are they employment? Is the majority of them employment? Is the majority of them housing? We could speak to the aggregate on those things, but we're working closely with our partner at VetConnect that provides us with the software that makes our referral network to try to break down the micro analysis of that data. And I think we can do it. We just, with the council districts, we just need to break down the streets and addresses and zip codes to that granular level, but I think it's doable.
And I want to jump in. I know Paul's going to jump real quick. I want to say something real quick. I think it's a lagging indicator that we can work on, because there is a continuum of care of different organizations that do help homeless veterans in this city, and we co-chair that continuum of care for the city. So we could look at some sort of lagging way to say this. In other words, based on the folks who we housed, here's where these people came from, as a way to kind of give you an insight on what's on the next side of this. Because and another piece of it, it's anecdotal right now. We're trying to put this data together, but asking our people to ask the veterans they assist, where were you 12 months before you entered the shelter system? And anecdotally right now, it's coming out to about somewhere between 20 to 30% of the folks are saying, I was in Chicago a year ago. I was in, Texas a year ago. I was in New Jersey a year ago. I was in California a year ago. And so it's also trying to get a handle on who is, in this current New York City homeless veteran community who wasn't originally from here, whom we're helping. We're going to help everyone. We care about this not only to be able to tell you this kind of information and the public, but also it helps us punch above weight class when competing for federal dollars to assist in this work, because New York City is a right to shelter city. And so that's a whole other thing I just wanted to put out there from this question. Sorry, Paul, you were going to say.
Yeah, and Commissioner, following on what you and Jason were saying, Chair Holden, and to the council members, even with the delegation meetings per borough, right? So if we team with you, and then we get the 13 council members for Queens and per each borough, they get a chance beyond this committee to maybe meet DVS, the mission, what's going on with veterans. And it's the things, the multiple hats we all wear. And because our agency is, limited to what we can do with the amount of folks that we have, that would be a real great way to spread the message, getting them out there and getting you support during this budget season to work with the mayor's team and with the council, because, and we always thank for the council members on the budget. They have almost 2.8 million in initiative funding designated just for veterans. So council gets it, just like we get it. But that's critical dollars to expand the mission. And so I think since this is that preliminary budget hearing, we are certainly proud of what we're doing. And like the commissioner said, you can always do more with more. This is one of those areas where maybe we can expand the bubble of how we interact with veterans as elected officials and as an agency.
Paul, I'd just like to note, I have to take the opportunity here to say that we can always use more help engaging landlords and housing that's available. The supply of housing is always the toughest nut to crack here. And that, we develop great relationship with landlords, but, having the boots on the ground, people like the PEU unit that's partnered with us for so many years now, helping us get engaged with landlords. That's one way I think that council can certainly help us, is just making us aware of when there is a property owner who's willing to house a veteran. That's something that I have to take the moment here to put out there.
Commissioner, just a few more questions on data collection. In March 2021, former Mayor de Blasio signed Executive Order 65, which requires agencies to adopt a standard and uniform veteran indicator question on their intake forms, questionnaires, or requests for assistance by the end of fiscal year 2021. What is the status of the implementation of that? How many agencies have adopted this question in their intake forms? And what data can you provide us with to show that this question is being asked and the answers are being tracked?
Thank you so much for that, that question, Mr. Chair. Just to level set, there are 89 agencies in total that fall under Executive Order 65. Of those 89, 14 agencies, it is not applicable to them, so it doesn't apply to them. As far as so, it leaves us with 75. Right. So the universe is 75 agencies we're talking about. 65 has responded to the form we put out regarding EO 65. So we're in a back and forth with 65 of those agencies, and the balance, what remains, have not yet responded as far as, and we're still working with the Mayor's Office of Operations and dealing with the folks above us in the food chain to kind of get that unclogged. Right now, we're in a place where, and I know JL can contribute and add to this, agencies are in a back and forth of, okay, I want to make sure I've got this question put in the appropriate way in my forms and my online presence. And so they're still in that transformation process when speaking of the 65 that are in active communication with us. Once we do get to a point where they ask the question, they give us high-level data. They'll say, hey, here's a number of people. When we asked the question and responded saying that they are someone who's a member of the community, we still have to do separate memorandums of understanding with agencies for them to share the information. So it's one thing for them to say, hey, I've got this number of people who are veterans, but now for them to share it, we've got to do MOUs. And so our general counsel has been actively putting together memorandums of understanding with these different agencies. So we have, pipelines of data. So it's not just, I know the numbers, but I know the numbers, I know who the people are, so I can touch them. Jay, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Commissioner, you did a great job on that. I think ultimately data sharing. We can't say it enough about how important it is for us to do our service deliveries, methods to the veteran community. As the Commissioner said, Executive Order 65 does wonders in us getting an aggregate number. So 55 people went to the New York City ID office and got a veteran indicator question ID card. That's great, but we don't get the address, phone number, or anything like that regarding that veteran for us to do some outreach and let them know that we exist and that if they need anything, we're here for them. We only get that information when we facilitate those memorandum of understandings with those agencies with a very specific purpose, because we as government do not, if we are going to have a data sharing agreement with anybody, we're going to have a very clear goal in what we're doing with that information. So that way we're not doing anything that the government should not be doing with that information. You know, we would only be doing outreach for the sole purpose of educating them on the resources that exist. And we've made that very clear in all of our previous MOUs during COVID-19.
All right. I know I won't ask you to mention those 10 agencies that haven't responded yet, Commissioner. We can do it offline, but I'd like to know at one point so that the council can put some weight behind getting them to do it. And that's what we're here for. So if maybe after the hearing, we could bring, if they don't comply still, we can get them to certainly do it and put it on. So I have one more topic, unless my colleagues have others. Let's talk about food insecurity. DVS reported that from January to June of 2021, the Veteran Resource Centers received 2,424 requests regarding food assistance. And from July to December of 2021, the centers only received 43 requests for food assistance. Huge drop off there. So, how do we explain that? We're going from 2,000, almost 2,500 requests in the first 6 months of 2021 to 43 in the rest of the year.
I'll start and I'll pass it to jail to keep it going. Couple of things. One of them is when we touched you, if you reach out about food, we tied you into Get Food NYC right away. So you're in that network. Right. That's one. Or we would put you on with food that was being delivered. For a large part of the pandemic time, we sent food out through what used to be, Nourish New York, USDA Farmers to Families Food Box. Food was coming out of the Bronx on Saturdays to a good number of people, and every Wednesday since July of 2020. And I see Wendy McClinton on, so I've got to recognize her here as far as a role that Black Vets for Social Justice and a large number of their volunteers do, preparing 2,000 meals that go out every single week like clockwork to folks. So a couple pieces of this. One, people got in the network with us, and then we put the bit in and it stayed in. And so that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of this, you're touching, I feel like we're touching this issue we mentioned on outreach, on our community has a decent understanding. Those who know us know they can go to nyc.gov/vetfood and get support. We need to go out to the people who don't know us. And so we've gotten beyond what is within our wheelhouse between us and the veteran service organizations that we have lines of communication with. Because even the food that goes out, tied to Wendy, to Black Vets for Social Justice, that goes out, there are over 20 veteran service organizations that touch that. When we look at what was going on in the Bronx, it was similar count as far as several organizations touched it. When we get beyond the realm of the known, how do we make sure people who typically wouldn't be in our orbit know about us and know they can ping us? And it's not just food. It also touches issues of, if I need rental support, I'm behind on the rent. Do I know to come out and that they can put me in touch with these VA benefits? If my loved one passes away, do I know I can reach out and I can go to nyc.gov/vetburials? But as Councilmember Palladino would say, not everyone's even looking online. How do we get this into people in other ways to know we can help you have that dignified burial, have the appropriate honors rendered? And so I think that you're in a subtle way touching the outreach issue that bedevils us that we're trying to get a handle on, Mr. Chair.
Great. Just in piggybacking off the what Councilmember Palladino said about many not online or they don't have access to a computer. I think the last administration, the de Blasio administration, learned the lesson the hard way when they were rolling out the vaccine. I don't know in the early days if you remember that they only put it online. That means the only way to connect to a vaccine was online. They didn't even have a hotline set up It took them another week to do that, a telephone hotline I'm talking about. So that's how we, we have to think in terms, most of us who use the computer or online take it for granted, but I think there's a large portion of our veterans population that's not online. So that we have to be aware of that. So when we mail out our print newsletters, I would like every council member to have a veterans corner in there to alert the veterans who are out there that, look, they could reach out to our offices or reach out to your office, Commissioner, to get the necessary assistance they need. And that's why I remind everyone in the council that those print newsletters are very, very important because, and I had a discussion with the speaker about this, that we need to put more emphasis on the print newsletter, which most of us couldn't use who are running for office all of 2021 because of the campaign. So now we have to catch up and put out those newsletters. I have no further questions. Committee council, anybody else have any things to add or any members?
I do not see any other hands raised. So I'm.
Mr. Chair, is it okay if I say one last thing? Is that right?
Sure.
I just, the top priorities for us, once again, we said benefits, we talked about outreach. And I just want to make sure I underscore this benefits piece where it kind of touches something that Councilmember Palladino was saying. We're seeing older generation of veterans who would usually do claims work. So think the Vietnam Veterans of America, think Disabled American Veterans, think the Veterans of Foreign Wars, think the American Legion. These groups would usually do claims work to help service members get right as far as applying for what they need to apply for from the VA. But as those groups are passing on, the younger groups aren't really taking that mantle. And so it's all the more reason why it's so critical for us to jump into this in the Dycd, to get in this in the foxhole and roll up our sleeves and do what we can to help with this. And to be clear, it's not just New York City DVS isn't the only group doing claims in this city. New York State DVS has a few people doing it. I know Black Vets for Social Justice has a few people doing it. I know there are a couple other groups that are still in this, but the need is so great that really the top thing that we're trying to attack is this claims piece. Me doing your claim means that, once we file and the VA renders some sort of judgment, you're going to get anywhere from $180 to, maybe $4,000 plus tax-free per month for the rest of your life. This is so important. And so I just wanted to kind of hit home on that. And we look at the count, we're at 14.9% of all New York City veterans has a service-connected disability rating. The national average is 25.6%. And so there's this huge delta between where we are and where the rest of the country is. And it's not just New York. Other urban cities have this same problem. Other urban cities, with the exceptions of Phoenix, Washington, D.C., and Miami, Florida, have this issue. DC is where the VA home is. There are a lot of retirees in Phoenix, a lot of retirees in Miami. Aside from that, a lot of our major urban sectors are lower than what the national average is. And so we're trying to be all hands on deck here because it is so important to our veterans and their loved ones to get them this federal support that they have earned. We had a man come across our agency about 2-3 weeks ago, 80 years old, had hearing issues, didn't know to come to go and apply to obtain VA benefits. And tinnitus is one of the top 3 issues historically, hearing loss, that our veterans deal with. Think about all the different noises you're around in the military. And you think, if this person had known and applied decades ago, they could have gotten the VA healthcare piece right because it's wasn't in VA healthcare, and they could have gotten who knows how much money to account for this ailment. And so for us, this is everything's important, but the biggest beast we're trying to slay is this claims piece and recognizing it's all hands on deck. I just want to make sure we're clear about that.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for your testimony, answering all the questions. Very, very good team. I must say, I'm very, very impressed with your agency and staff members. I know you, the fact that it's a small agency and so much to do, it's a daunting task, but I think, just by your passion today, you guys are up to it. And I thank you for your testimony today. And I hope at least one of your staff members will stay on for the testimony of the advocates. Thank you so much, Commissioner and staff. Thank you. Back to committee counsel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. We have concluded administration testimony and will now turn to public testimony. I'd like to remind everyone that we will be calling on individuals one by one to testify. Each panelist will be given 3 minutes to speak. Panelists, after I call your name, a member of our staff will unmute you. There may be a few seconds of delay before you are unmuted, and we thank you in advance for your patience. Please wait a brief moment for the Sergeant at Arms to announce that you may begin before you start your testimony. Council members who have questions for a particular panelist should use the raise hand function in Zoom. I will call on you after the panel has completed their testimony in the order in which you raised your hand. I would now like to call on Ryan Foley, Peter Kempner, Macadee Salmond, and Coco Calhoun.
Time starts now.
Ryan, you may begin.
Hello, good morning, Chair Holden, council members and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the Veterans Committee. My name is Ryan Foley, and I am the supervising attorney of the Veterans Practice at New York Legal Assistance Group, NYLAG. NYLAG uses the power of the law to help New Yorkers in need. We address emerging and urgent legal needs with free civil legal services, impact litigation, policy advocacy, and community education. NYLAG's Veterans Practice is a community-based veterans program funded by the City Council's Legal Services for Veterans Initiative and Discharge Upgrade Legal Assistance Services Grant. The Veterans Practice provides comprehensive services to veterans and their families, regardless of their discharge status, with the aim of increasing eligibility and access to the numerous benefits available to the veteran community. Veterans face all the same legal concerns as any other population, but also experience issues unique to their veteran status and military experiences. Our Veterans Practice focuses on those specialized issues while simultaneously utilizing the expertise of NYLAG's 300+ attorneys, paralegals, and financial counselors to address the other civil legal needs presented. Over the past 2 years, which have been especially devastating for our veteran community we serve, the ability to maximize resources has never been more important. NYLAG is extremely grateful to the City of New York for its investment in legal services for veterans. NYLAG has been the recipient of funding for the Legal Services for Veterans Initiative since its inception, and because of that funding, we have been able to assist veterans with thousands of legal issues, such as veterans benefits, public benefits, housing, consumer protection, and obtaining advanced planning documents, among many others. The recent Discharge Upgrade Legal Assistance Services Grant has substantially increased our capacity to advocate for veterans who received a less than honorable discharge, which can bar them from access to VA healthcare, educational opportunities, and income support from disability compensation or pension. Too often, a less than honorable discharge stems from service-related mental health issues, discrimination, or retaliation for reporting abuse. And as a result, the most vulnerable veterans miss out on life-changing benefits and essential healthcare services. We sincerely thank the city for taking on this mission and making sure that we do not leave any veterans behind. Today, we are moving to the next phase of pandemic response with the end of the Key to New York City mandate. It is an important moment for us as a city and one where we must be mindful of the new challenges facing our veteran community. NYLAG has already seen the impact of the end of federal and state COVID-related protections, particularly VA debt relief and New York's eviction moratorium. As New York works to recover from the impact of COVID-19, civil legal services are more necessary than ever for struggling veterans who have been impacted on all fronts, including loss of income, unemployment, difficulty accessing medical care, housing instability, and exacerbating of existing physical and mental health conditions. City funding for legal assistance makes all the difference for veterans who need an advocate at their side, and it is crucial to ensure continued and increased support.
Time expired.
Can I finish my?
Yes, you may finish.
And increase support to allow veterans to recover and flourish. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. NYLAG looks forward to engaging in further discussions about how we can best serve our veteran community and improve their access to crucial legal services and other resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Peter Kempner, you may begin when the Sergeant at Arms starts the timer.
Time starts now.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Peter Kempner and I'm the Legal Director at Volunteers of Legal Service, also known as Vols. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. Thank you, Chair Holden, Commissioner Hendon, other members of the council and DVS. Vols was established in 1984 and our purpose is to leverage private attorneys to provide free legal services to low-income New Yorkers to help fill the justice gap. In addition to my duties as legal director of Vols, I founded and supervise the Vols Veterans Initiative, which is part of our senior law project, which provides free civil legal services to New York City veterans age 60 and over, regardless of their discharge status or period of service. Each year, the United States Department of Veterans Affairs conducts their annual challenge survey, where they determine the unmet needs of veterans. And in the most recently published survey, it was determined that 6 of the top 10 unmet needs of veterans polled were legal in nature. While the veteran community faces a myriad of civil legal services needs which impact their health, stability, housing, and productivity, they are often left to face these challenges on their own. A recent study by the Legal Services Corporation found that 88% of veterans receive inadequate or no professional legal help with their civil legal problems. This is why the New York City Council's Legal Services for Veterans initiative is so critical. The New York City Council must be applauded for funding free civil legal services for our veteran community, and we urge the council to take the necessary steps to safeguard and even increase this funding in the upcoming fiscal year. Having access to free, high-quality, veteran-focused legal services will ensure a brighter future for those who have sacrificed so much for all of us. The core work that Vols Veterans Initiative does for aging veterans is the drafting and execution of life planning documents, including last wills and testaments, powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, and other advanced directives. As has been repeatedly mentioned this morning, New York City's veteran population is graying. Right now, the youngest veterans who served during the Vietnam War period are 65 years old. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed how vulnerable older veterans are. In January 2021, the VA reported that more veterans had died of COVID-19 than from Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom combined. In addition, a 2020 study showed that veterans who tested positive for COVID-19, most deaths were attributed to being over the age of 60, being male, and having greater comorbidity burden. Studies suggest that veterans, like the population at large, have not engaged in life planning. We want to make sure that the aging veteran population are able to make their wishes clear, have the right plans in place, and are able to, if I could just finish in a moment. Thank you. By engaging in effective life planning, elderly and disabled veterans are more likely to be able to stay in their homes, age in place, and live with dignity. The Vols Veteran Initiative has partnered with DVS to help serve the community, but we know that DVS cannot meet all of the needs of the community alone. It is essential that other city agencies effectively partner with DVS. To do this, all city agencies must effectively screen for military service when interacting with the public, be consistent and deliberate in communicating that information to DVS, and working to ensure that New York City's veterans' needs are met. Thank you for allowing us to submit this testimony and for supporting New York City's veteran community.
Thank you so much. Peter, now we will be hearing from McAdee Solomon. You may begin when the timer starts.
Time starts now.
I think she had dropped off. Okay, we'll come back to her. Coco, you may begin when the timer starts.
Time starts. Yep, time starts now.
Hi, I'm Coco, the founder and executive director of the Veteran Advocacy Project. And I also sit on a number of advisory boards. And I just wanted to start by saying, I think there's a real disconnect today. You'll notice there are a lot of lawyers here testifying because we all like to talk. And so we've all shown up, but there aren't veterans. And I'm just getting a lot of messages here saying that vets are really upset right now and are feeling like there's a disconnect between what's being said and the reality out in their communities. So I just wanted to note that. Not a veteran myself, but serve them. And obviously my organization provides free legal services to veterans who are in crisis. So my perspective is skewed. We deal with veterans who live with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury and substance use issues. So we tend to see veterans when they're at their worst. And so some of my concerns do revolve around the mental health piece. Obviously, I saw in one of the reports prepared for today that there are 8 staff members for devoted to mental health in the upcoming budget, which does not connect with anything that was said today. I'm thrilled to hear that there's screening being done, but again, it just seems like there's a question there of what's formally in place. And of course, we understand that people don't want to be identified and labeled, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have people who are identified and labeled as those doing the outreach. I think that there can be a difference there. And I also think that there are just a lot of different programs and things that are innovative and terrific and look towards bringing veterans into the city, but maybe it sounds like are not reaching veterans in outer boroughs or veterans in those older posts, those chapters as American Legions, VFWs, and who have different concerns perhaps. I mean, this is just some of the information that's been filling my phone this morning. So I just wanted to share that. My testimony I will submit goes into numbers and budgets and things like that. But I think it's really important that kind of the disconnect be pointed out and that mental health really be highlighted. I think there's just a continual struggle since DVS was created about, are we creating an agency that provides services or that provides a link to services? And I think it's important that we don't expect too much and that we create programs that actually are doable, right? That DVS can accomplish and can accomplish well. And I will cede my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coco. We will now be hearing from, well, actually, we're going to turn to council member questions because I don't see McAdee back on.
Yes.
Chair Holden, do you have questions for this panel?
Yes, thank you. Coco, just let me ask a question. How do we, I don't know if you heard the discussion about creative ways we can reach the veterans to connect them with services, whether it's through DVS, like you mentioned, or with the VA. Many have fallen through the cracks, as we know. What do you have any suggestions with your clientele? What's the biggest disconnect? What aren't we doing? And what's the best way to reach your clients?
I mean, admittedly, our population is a small subsegment of veterans, and I would never say that, all veterans are in crisis, obviously, but, we used to go straight out to the shelters, right? We would just literally go set up shop at Borden, things like that, where you're coming to the veterans and not waiting and hoping that they're going to say, hey, I'm suicidal. You're screening them, which it sounds like DVS is now doing, which is fantastic. And that's not labeling someone, it's asking the right questions. And that outreach, I think, needs to be happening. We can't be waiting for veterans to come and say, hey, do you have this service? If we want to work on the suicide rate for one of the most vulnerable populations, we have to be asking the question.
Okay, so thank you so much. I want to ask the attorneys that are on this panel, what are some of the biggest reasons, or what? Maybe you can tell me that a veteran is turned down that you're seeing on the front lines from the VA. Why are they being turned down? Why do they need your services? What are the biggest complaints that you're hearing on the ground? And anyone can take that if they'd like. I guess Ryan or Peter.
Give us 1 second because they're all on mute.
Oh, okay.
Hold on
Sure,
1 second. I am so sorry.
I can take this first and then pass it along to Peter. So I think the two biggest issues that we see coming in the door are first an eligibility issue, which is often related to their discharge status. And so that is absolutely one of the main barriers that veterans are facing. The second is not knowing the information about the different benefits that they may be available out there. And so I think there's a huge information disconnect. And again, it's been brought up multiple times already. A lot of this information is only available online or if you're speaking directly with an advocate. And so making this information more available across our community, so individuals know that they are entitled to these benefits, that these things are out there and that there's advocates out there that are ready to assist. And that comes to the issue of making sure we have advocates available to be able to do this work. Absolutely, having VSOs be able to assist with claims is important, but also having attorneys available to assist when those claims become more complicated and need the assistance of that legal expertise.
Great, thank you.
And I'll add, NYLAG and BAC both do amazing work with respect to discharge upgrades. That is key, making sure that people have the right discharge status in order to access benefits. And the other piece is the screening for veteran status piece. And it's disturbing to hear how far behind so many agencies are in implementing Executive Order 65. But it's not just city agencies that need to be asking the right question. It's all of the service providers, whether it's us legal services providers or other social service providers. Because once we know somebody has served, then we could point them in the right direction to set them up with those benefits. I think the story that the administration told before about the 80-year-old veteran with tinnitus is a perfect example of that. This person should have been getting benefits for maybe decades. And so many of the older veterans, they left their service behind decades ago and haven't thought that maybe this is something that they could tap into now. We represented a veteran who was seeking succession rights to his partner's apartment. And, we were representing him in housing court and able to secure those succession rights. But then he turned to me and said, Pete, even if I get the lease in my name, I'm not going to be able to afford the rent. And then we, as part of our intake, had asked, did you serve? And he had, and we asked when he served. And he had served during a period of wartime. And looked at his discharge status, looked at his period of service, looked at his income, and determined that he was eligible for a VA pension. He was able to increase his benefits by $500 a month, able to afford the rent, able to stay in the apartment that he had lived in with his partner for decades. And so just asking that simple question and having staff that are well-versed in VA benefits allowed him to stay in the community instead of being displaced and end up homeless and maybe leaving New York City. And so universal screening for veteran status, whether it's at social service providers, at city agencies, and frankly, in the courts as well. When somebody is facing eviction, we need to know whether or not they're a veteran, and we don't know that information right now. And so that really is key.
Thank you, Peter. And just Peter and Ryan, maybe a quick answer to this. When you see, when you're dealing with the VA during the pandemic or city agencies, have you seen a huge drop off during the pandemic, like people not getting back to you, a huge delay? I suspect the answer is yes, but are there some agencies that are not doing the good job, in just getting information back to you or answering your letters or email?
The delay during the pandemic has been absolutely massive. Trying to get records for individuals has been extremely challenging. There's been shutdowns of the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis, which has completely stopped individuals who need a copy of military records to be able to apply for these benefits or even attempt to. It has been a huge delay. The VA is also, as part of the benefits process, often schedules in-person disability examinations, and being able to have those examinations in a safe way has been a huge challenge. And so this has made it so individuals who would normally have these exams scheduled in a couple months are now seeing 6 months, 8 months before they have this exam, which is needed for them to be awarded benefits sometimes. And so these delays have been a huge impact. And I don't even think we know the real impact of it at this point yet. I mean, we're still just kind of grappling with the issues that we've been seeing.
I could just add something about that. The VA this past couple of weeks held what's called, they had an OTH summit, other than honorable summit, where they are creating this massive effort to reach all the veterans who are not eligible for care, who may be, and to bring them in. And so they're starting to look at ways where they can do that. And one of the things that we recommended at that summit was to work with the Veterans Justice Outreach Office, because I think also reentry work, justice involvement is a huge key. We have a partnership with Black Veterans for Social Justice, for instance, on this. You have 30 to 40% of veterans going through that system have less than honorable discharges. And when you look at, and NYLAG and VAP in particular are so grateful, I know, to be working with DVS on this. A less than honorable discharge, the suicide rate is 3 times as high. It's the second highest predictor of homelessness. It creates this domino effect. So I think shelters and the justice system are 2 places where we need to be stepping in. The VA is allegedly, I'll say, going to be expanding their outreach, but as a local community, I think that's where our responsibility lies.
Great, thank you. Okay, back to committee council.
Awesome. Thank you to all the panelists. I'm now going to call on our second panel. Hold on one second. Again, my spiel. After I call your name, a member of our staff will unmute you. There may be a few seconds of delay before you are unmuted, and I'm going to thank you all in advance for your patience. So please wait a brief moment for the Sergeant at Arms to announce that you may begin before starting your testimony. I'm now going to call on MJ Okma, Tyler Levson, and David Sandman. MJ, you may begin when the Sergeant starts a timer. Thank you for your patience.
Time starts now.
Good afternoon, Chair Holden and members of the Committee on Veterans. My name is MJ Okuma with SAGE, and I'm here to deliver testimony on behalf of my esteemed colleague, a combat veteran of the U.S. Navy and SAGE Vets Program Manager, Ashton Stewart. The SAGE Vets program is the only program in New York designed to address the unique needs of older LGBTQ+ veterans, who are twice as likely to face housing insecurity compared to their non-LGBTQ+ peers. The veterans we represent are no different than any other veterans in the U.S. military. Most are profoundly patriotic and served during conflicts abroad and took home significant amounts of trauma. What is unique about the veterans we serve is that they're often burdened by an additional form of trauma. Discrimination against LGBTQ+ service members has been deeply embedded into U.S. military history and frequently led to severe situations that range from abuse to military sexual trauma, or MST. This compounding trauma can be so repressed that it often goes untreated for decades and causes irreparable harm. This is where SAGE Vets makes the biggest impact, helping veterans get on the path to recovery and improved wellness. Once we connect with a veteran, SAGE Vets supports them every step of the way on their healing journey at a pace that is guided by their own personal comfort level. Once a veteran is ready, we proceed with referrals to life-changing services that include mental health support, creating eligibility for VA healthcare, discharge upgrades under the Restoration of Honor Act, and disability comprehensive benefits, and more. SAGE Vets also works closely with City and State Department of Veterans and veteran service groups such as Black Veterans for Social Justice. SAGE Vets is able to do this vital work thanks to the support from the City Council. In fiscal year 23, we respectfully request your consideration for a restoration of $125,000 under the Legal Services for Veterans Initiative to continue this work. Because of previous support from the Council, SAGE Vets has been able to provide over 50 legal referrals in 2021, along by step-by-step support. We secured legal victories, including 2 discharge upgrades under the Restoration of Honor Act, eviction protection, and disability rating increases. SAGE also works to connect SAGE Vet participants to our other programs and services, and have been able to hire a case manager who specifically specializes in the needs of older LGBTQ+ veterans. More details can be found in our written testimony, but thank you so much for the Council's support in providing me with this opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much, MJ. Tyler Levson, you may begin when the timer starts.
Time starts now.
Hello, my name is Tyler Levson. I'm a staff attorney at Lyft, Legal Information for Families Today. Thank you to Chair Holden and members of the Committee on Veterans for the opportunity to testify about the issues veterans are experiencing in family courts. Lyft's mission is to increase access to justice in New York State Family Court. We combine legal guidance, easy to access technology, and compassionate support to help unrepresented parents and caregivers self-advocate on critical family law issues while working on reform that improves the system for everyone. During the past few years, with the support of the New York City Council, Lyft has expanded outreach and services to veterans across New York City. In 2021, Lyft served 205 veterans or current military members through our family law helpline, outreach events, and legal consultations. Through our limited scope representation model, we are able to inform veterans about the law, advise them about what actions they should take, and then assist them with their family court cases. Most of the veterans we serve are struggling with paying child support and the resulting enforcement consequences for non-payment. Child support can be unaffordable, or when it is garnished from a military pension or VA disability benefits, the amount can be incorrect, withheld improperly, or beyond the statute of limitations for collection. A veteran may not realize this, which results in them not receiving the right amount of their benefits and often places them in financial hardship. These issues have been worsened by the inaccessibility of the family court during the pandemic. For a long period of time, the court was only hearing what it deemed emergency cases, which did not include child support matters. The recent New York City Bar Association and the Fund for Modern Courts report, titled "The Impact of COVID-19 on the New York City Family Court," found that the court created a false dichotomy between emergency and non-emergency cases, which rationalized delays that caused harm to thousands of families. LIFT has seen some child support cases not get scheduled for a first hearing until over a year from filing. This is too long to wait when the stakes are so high and veterans and their families need money to cover their basic needs. I want to thank the New York City Council for its continued support and focus on issues impacting veterans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyler. We will now be hearing from David Sandman. David, you may begin when the timer starts.
Time starts now.
Okay, thank you, Chair Holden and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today about the health needs of veterans in New York. I'm Dr. David Sandman, the president and CEO of the New York State Health Foundation, and we are a private, independent, and statewide charitable organization dedicated to improving the health of all New Yorkers, and that includes the 700,000 or so veterans who call New York their home. We've used grants and policy analysis, convening, and advocacy to profile New York's veterans, to create universal access to veterans treatment courts across the state, to build a robust network of community-based services, and to prepare civilian healthcare providers to understand veteran culture and meet their needs. And first and foremost, we are working with partners to reduce the tragedy of veteran suicide. In 2019, veterans in New York were nearly twice as likely as the state's general population to die by suicide. And particularly concerning is the increasing rate of suicide among New York's youngest veterans, even as the rates among older veterans have declined. Tackling this problem requires a multifaceted approach that includes restricting access to guns. Firearms are by far the most lethal method of suicide, and you can learn more about all of that work and more by going to our website at nyshealth.org. You've heard about the graying of our population, but our vets population is not monolithic. Our vet population is increasingly diverse. Racial and ethnic minorities now make up 23% of New York's vet population, and that number is expected to reach 30% by 2030. The share of women veterans is growing quickly. Women are expected to make up 10% of New York's vet population. I also want to dispel the notion that veterans are broken or violent. Many newer veterans come home from deployment and transition back to civilian life relatively smoothly. They're healthy, they're ready to work, ready to go to school. But for some, the adjustment is not so easy. They struggle with physical injuries, disabilities, invisible wounds of war like PTSD. Meeting veterans' mental health needs and preventing vet suicide must remain top priorities. My colleague and Marine veteran, Derek Coy, testified to this committee on mental health needs and COVID last fall. We've been proud to support Stop Soldier Suicide, which has thus far connected 140 New York veterans at high risk of suicide to high quality specialized care. We also partner with New York Cares and New York City DVS to continue the Mission Vet Check program, which provides buddy checks, peer-to-peer support, and referrals. Thanks to the leadership of the City Council, DVS was elevated to a full-fledged agency led by a commissioner in 2016. Prior to that, it had a meager budget and almost no staff. As you've heard from Commissioner Hendon, that is allowing them to support a much more robust set of services. And I will echo you, Chair Holden, how you started today's hearing. Thanking veterans for their service means nothing if we don't back up those words with the first-class services and supports that they need. So we share your commitment to veterans. I hope you'll look to the foundation as a resource in your important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandman. I will now turn it over to Chair Holden for questions for this panel.
Thank you, David, and thank you for the whole panel. The peer-to-peer, David, is so important. I think that would be an area that we certainly should expand. How do we do that? Do we do that with additional funding? Better out? I suspect outreach, but I would think there's so many veterans willing to volunteer for peer-to-peer, because that's probably the most. I think for the bang. Let's talk about bang for your buck, where it wouldn't cost much, but it would certainly go a long way. Would you say?
Peer-to-peer works. I referred to veterans treatment courts. Having a peer mentor is what we often call the special sauce that makes that work. We're pleased by what we think is going to happen in Albany this year with the Dwyer program. Like, everybody is sick and tired of the annual kabuki dance of getting that project, cut in the executive budget proposal, restored by the legislature. It's a waste of time and energy. They don't even exist in many counties, and they are of variable quality. And we are now expect to work with a new group that connects veterans before they transition, 6 months before their actual transition, begins to make that peer mentor connection so that they get a warm handoff as somebody who they can relate to, who's ready to work with them immediately upon their transition to civilian status. And it has to be a true mentor. If you're a post 9/11 young female vet, you probably don't want, a Vietnam War vet. You think, what does this person have in common with me? They're not really a peer. So customizing and tailoring it and making it a true peer, and the quality of that peer relationship is just as important as having a warm body in place.
Great. I know that Lyft said they worked with 205 veterans. Sage, is the Sage representative still on?
Yes.
Yeah. How many clients reached out to you during the pandemic, and has it fallen off during the pandemic?
I'll have to get back to you with the exact numbers. I'm filling in for my colleague who's having emergency oral surgery this morning. But I know that we were lucky enough to kind of expand our outreach over. We have a pretty extensive newsletter. So our outreach grew by 25% over the pandemic, and our legal referrals actually went up thanks for some of the partnerships that we had with other organizations. But I will follow up with your office with those exact numbers.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, great panel. Thank you again. Back to you, Committee Counsel.
Thank you, Chair. I will now ask if there are any questions from council members. As a reminder, if council members have a question for this panel, please use your raise hand function in Zoom at this time. I'm going to give it a moment. Okay. I don't see any hands raised, so I will now call on the next panel. I would like to now welcome Allison Messina. After Allison, we'll be hearing from Richard Ralph, and after Richard, we'll be hearing from Kimberly Moore. Allison, you may begin when the timer starts.
Time starts now.
Good afternoon, Chair Holden and fellow City Council members. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Allison Messina, and I'm the Vice President of Workforce Development at Project Renewal. We're a New York City Homeless Services nonprofit agency. The City Council has generously supported Project Renewal's homeless prevention services for veterans. Support that has been crucial for us to help veterans across all of our programs. In this testimony, I'd like to give you an overview of how Project Renewal's dedicated staff have worked to meet the complex needs of our clients, and in particular, the veterans that we serve. In fiscal year 21, we provided healthcare to 148 veterans through our 4 clinics. Those are located within our homeless shelters, as well as through our 3 mobile healthcare vans. Our fleet of mobile medical vans was also particularly responsive to COVID-19 and has remained popular with our veteran clientele. Veterans attend more appointments per person, meaning they come back for more services compared to the non-veterans that we serve. The vans deliver critical health care to New York City's most underserved patients. They assisted with COVID-19 testing at the height of the pandemic and helped us ensure vulnerable New Yorkers had access to vaccination. Among our housing programs, we welcomed 23 veterans into emergency shelters in fiscal year 21. We ensured 65 additional veterans were safely housed within Project Renewal, and they benefited from enhanced services that included occupational therapy, hot meal delivery, and telepsychiatry to combat stress and anxiety. 86% of veterans admitted to Project Renewal supportive housing successfully maintain their housing for at least 1 year. Our employment services have continued to be critical in helping veterans get back on their feet. Our vocational training, job placement, and job retention assistance help individuals face significant barriers to employment, including histories of substance use disorder, homelessness, justice involvement, and mental illness. In fiscal year 21, we had 32 veterans enroll in our culinary arts training program and our homeless services sector-based training programs, which have placed over 80% of graduates into jobs over the past 5 years. Project Renewal is proud to serve those who have bravely served our country and sincerely appreciate the Council's consideration of increased support so that we may build upon these efforts at a time when our veterans need us most. We strongly support the Department of Veterans Services and value our role as a partner in its mission, and we look forward to working more with the department and welcome suggestions for greater partnership in the future. Thank you so much for this opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Allison. We'll now be hearing from Richard Ralph. Richard, you may begin when the timer starts.
Time starts now.
One second, Richard. You're now unmuted. You may begin.
Good afternoon again, Chair Holden and fellow City Council members. I truly thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Richard Ralph, and I'm the Trade and Quality Control Manager at a nonprofit, Project Renewal, social enterprise catering company, City Beach Kitchen. I have been with them for about 3 years, and I am also a veteran. I served the Marine Corps from 2001 to 2005, and I was in the Army National Guard from 2006 to 2013. I also deployed to Afghanistan my last year of service in 2012. When I finished term of service, unfortunately, I was incarcerated and going through a lot of mental issues myself. I ended up being incarcerated for 5 years. And upon my release, trying to renew my life and get back on the right track and be a better citizen, I found Project Renewal, and I entered their CATP program to become a cook. And from there, I was back on track in my own head from all the problems that I was facing at the time. Upon completion of the program, the Project Renewal team so impressed me by their hard work and dedication. I was hired by them as a junior cook at the catering company City Beach Kitchen and have been promoted twice since then. And now I work as the Trade and Quality Control Manager. I oversee the service we allocate to different contracts with other shelters to provide food for other residents, assess food quality, address disciplinaries, and take feedback to figure out how we can improve our services. I enjoy the feeling of giving back and providing quality food to the shelters, residents, and other New Yorkers in need. I love the positivity the mission of Project Renewal brings. After serving my country, it's a good feeling that I know that I can still give back in my career today. Project Renewal helped brighten up a very dark part of my life after incarceration by helping me get back to work and back on my feet. Every veteran should have these kinds of opportunities if they fall on hard times. And I hope that New York City Council will continue to provide funding to Project Renewal programs that support veterans so that people can find hope like I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. I'm now going to turn it over to the chair for questions for this panel. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. We are now going to be hearing from Kimberly. Kimberly, I'm so sorry about that.
Time starts now.
Hold on one second, Kimberly. You have to accept the unmute. You're good now. So sorry about that, Kimberly. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you to the Committee on Veterans for the honor and privilege of testifying before you today. My name is Kimberly Moore, Director of Care Cafe at Yeshiva University's Wirtz School of Social Work. Care Cafe is our community-based program providing psychoeducational pop-up support cafes throughout the New York metro area. Our students and faculty have pioneered a targeted model of embedding Care Cafe programs in local community institutions. A portion of Care Cafe's funding is designated for veteran services. The commitment and sacrifices of our military service personnel is revered. However, our veterans face many challenges. Some of these include increased rates of suicidality, long-term declining behavioral and emotional health due to prolonged grief and trauma, substance use, and financial insecurity. Traditionally, the medical and social service needs of veterans are addressed through the multifaceted departments of the VA hospitals and its programs. However, research indicates that there is a significant underutilization of the VA hospitals and its social services due to a lack of trust in the efficacy of services, challenges with navigating its systems and departments, eligibility for services based on discharge status, and the perception that services are not equipped to address the needs of special populations, such as women veterans with higher incidence of sexual assault and challenges with transitioning from military to civilian life. To this end, community-based programs are an asset. They are equipped to welcome veterans regardless of their disposition and engage many times as first responders. They also serve as a conduit between veteran service seekers and larger entities. Many community-based organizations like Care Cafe and their uniqueness of design bring the necessary services directly to veterans exactly where they are by providing a non-traditional intimate setting by providing non-traditional setting for intimate engagement. Community-based settings foster an environment for a deeper exploration into the histories and current conditions of veteran service seekers with the goal of creating an organized, targeted individual action plan addressing their specific needs rapidly. This hand-over-hand approach supports the facilitation of immediate intervention, psychoeducation, increased successful referrals, retention in services, and opens the door for opportunities to regularly follow up on one's progress. In closing, community-based organizations rely on the fiscal support from the City Council to expand our work in health equity. These disbursements of discretionary funds offer opportunities for diversified programs to expand their reach, to engage underrepresented or underserved veteran populations. It is our goal to further develop and strengthen our relationships with our community-based organizations to serve veterans comprehensively. On behalf of Yeshiva University's Wirtz School of Social Work's Care Cafe, we thank you for this opportunity to share today's meeting and for your continuing programmatic support for community-based organizations citywide. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Before I turn it over to chair questions and committee questions for this panel, I'm going to ask that the caller identified as caller 1, I just want to allow you to talk. Are you registered to testify today? Okay, I guess not. We're going to fix that on our end. We just had one more registrant. We just wanted to see this person wasn't identified. Okay, we'll deal with that offline. Thank everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Chair Holden. Chair Holden, if you have questions for this panel.
Yes, I just have great panel again, and it's amazing. Allison and Richard, certainly with Project Renewal. What a great, Richard, what a great success story. And I commend Project Renewal. How important is, it would be, Allison, you can answer this, or Richard, but how important is vocational training in your organization for vets? To find, I learned this in funding other projects, that's certainly an important component, vocational training. Give people a purpose, and you'll save them. That's their safety net. Either one of you, Richard, it's really such a great service to your country, and then you were saved by a project that gave you purpose, I think, obviously in as being a chef, or but what else do you do at Project Renewal, Allison, in the way of vocational training?
Yeah, we do a lot of vocational training services, and we've had specialized programs for veterans for over a decade. I've only been there for 8 years, and we've had them throughout that time. It's really important to provide employment services specifically for veterans. It really, we connect to employers who prioritize hiring veterans, being able to help our veterans articulate all the values that employers seek in their employers that they gained through their service. So being able to talk about, being able to work as part of a team towards a common goal, following procedures and so forth. And this dedication, all that stuff is what employers really look for, those values, and our veterans just show that over and over again. But I'll pause there because I think, Richard definitely can add more value here.
Thank you, Allison. Yes, when it comes to vocational programming, I feel that it is definitely a necessity for veterans, especially, just coming out of the service, or, unfortunately, for those that fall on hard times coming out of incarceration, or just hard times in general. It gives you an avenue of approach to renew yourself in a sense, especially when we have programs out there that can help us with funding and stuff, because a lot of the hard times comes with, besides mental, but also financial difficulties. And we were there serving our country, and it just feels good to come out of it and still feel like we matter, and that our voices is heard, and that we're still important members of society, even if we may not still be under the umbrella of service. And a lot of us, myself, speaking for myself, I'm happy to be able to give back to my veteran brothers and sisters, and give them that avenue of approach, especially telling my own story of how I fell down and I still was able to get back up because of programs like Project Null. And I'm so thankful for them.
Richard, that's an amazing story, but your story should be told and retold. What's your signature dish? What were you good at? What's your best dish in cooking?
I am a chicken man myself, so I love making all kinds of different chicken dishes. Right now I'm practicing with a lot of the keto type diets and stuff like that, trying to build my palate on it.
Well, the mayor would like that. Maybe he should talk to you about some dietary options. I see my colleague has a question.
Yes, Councilmember Palladino has a question.
Hi again. Thank you. Congratulations, Richard. Yay. Good for you. It's all about rising above whatever obstacles are put in our place. It's not the way you fall down, it's the way you get back up. Right. So congratulations to you. Project Renewal interests me a great deal. Interested to know a couple of things. Bob brought up about the vocational training. I'm all about vocational training, whether it be for our vets or our high school students that aren't doing quite as well as they could or should be doing because they're not academically inclined, they're more vocationally inclined. But let's stay on the vets. How many people does Project Renewal, how many vets does Project Renewal actually, or how many vets come to seek Project Renewal's program?
So overall, I believe we have about 200 veterans involved in Project Renewal services at any given time. So, there's so many different entry points to Project Renewal. And so we'll try to make it as comprehensive as possible. So depending on where they come, they may be referred for vocational, or maybe before that, they need to be linked up to mental health services, or they need help with getting supportive housing. So the broad number is about 200 veterans, I believe, at any given time.
Okay. That being said, that's 200 vets throughout 5 boroughs?
Yes, especially our vocational programs serve all 5 boroughs.
How can we help to make that a lot stronger?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're always seeking new referral partners. So we have a broad base of community-based organizations we reach out to regularly. I think our outreach efforts in the last 2 years have, we have really struggled with COVID. Of course. With so many organizations, non-essential agencies being shut down for a big part of the beginning of the pandemic.
Mhm.
not being able to go out to sites to do the outreach in
Sure.
person. And so we're just trying to get back on our feet in that way. We're doing outreach remotely, but however, people can refer people to us, go on our website, email me directly.
Again, it's all about the communication aspect
It
and
is,
getting
absolutely.
the knowledge out there of what is actually available to our veterans.
Yeah.
Like Richard had said, those who have fallen upon hard times and have bounced back, they need exactly what you offer in order to stand on their own 2 feet again. And by standing up on their own 2 feet, it helps the mental aspect. One thing folds right into another. It's like baking a cake. So we need to find out more about, I know I need to find out more about you, Chairman Holden, and myself, and everybody else on our committee will work closely with you. Also, Kimberly, you as well. These
Hey, I'm
are
looking forward
really,
to it.
it's all about getting back up and acclimating yourself back into the real world, no matter what hardships you suffered. I'm also on the mental health committee, as I've stated earlier. So there's different, like I said, like baking a cake. So let's figure out what we could do here, and let's work together on this. It's all about vocational training and reentry into society. Okay, it's good. It's all good stuff. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palladino. I'm going to now turn it back to Chair Holden. Chair Holden, do you have any other questions for this panel?
I'm just amazed. And again, it's just, it really warms my heart that we have veterans like Richard who, that story again should be told over and over again. And I know the commissioner's on this, still on, he's listening. And I hope we can highlight Richard's story and as an inspiration to other veterans. What Councilmember Palladino said, it's incumbent upon us as council members to get this out and to fund projects like Project Renewal, who obviously are doing great work. And this is a good this is a good message to send to all the veterans. So let's try to do that through our council offices. Thank you. Back to you. And again, thanks for this panel, but thanks to the story of Richard's. I think you're an inspiration, and thank you for coming on. Committee counsel, back to you.
Thank you so much, Chair Holden. I'm going to do a last call. If we have inadvertently missed anyone that has registered to testify today and has not yet to have been called, please use the Zoom raise hand function now, and you will be called on in the order that you have raised your hand. I'm going to give it a moment because there was some back and forth about invitations today. So I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity. Okay. I do not see any hand. So I'm now going to turn it back to Chair Holden for closing remarks. Chair Holden.
Thank you so much, and great job by everyone. Bianca, thank you so much for your great work on this and preparing this hearing. But I just want to say, Commissioner, I know you're still on, and your staff is still on, and I think Paul Vallone could vouch for this. I've been on the council now 4+ years. This is my 5th year, and I've never. I think I can count on one hand how many times an agency has stayed on the entire call, the entire hearing, and the entire staff stayed on that testified. So it's a testament to your passion, Commissioner. I know I'm not just saying this, it's from the heart, that you listen to all the advocates. And I think we're a good team, like I said before, that we all care. We care about veterans. We want to help veterans. But you heard some great stories today, Commissioner, and I think we're all inspired not only by the DVS testimony and comments, but also by the advocates who are passionate about helping veterans. So I think we have our work cut out for us, but I think we got some good headway here, and I think we learned from this hearing that we can't cut the budget of DVS. We have to double it. So, but I also learned about the great projects that are out there. Like I said, I'm new to this committee. I thank everyone that testified today and really helped us clear up the picture of what we have to do, where we have to go with DVS. But thank you all for coming on and sitting through this long hearing. But I think we made some good headway. Thanks all. Thanks to my colleagues who stayed on also to the end. Thank you.
Chair, can you do like the little adjourning the hearing?
Yes.
Like, meeting is now adjourned.
I was about to. I had my.
Okay, thanks. Okay, great.
This hearing is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.